What, can you see that? What does it mean?
Britain. An ancient kingdom with legends of violence, cruelty, and torment in its blood. Join your hosts, Ross, John, and James, as they bravely tread where few would dare. Witness their journey into the horrific history of British horror. They are the General Witchfinders.
Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, goblins and ghouls, welcome back to the 39th episode of the General Witchfinders podcast. I'm James in Bournemouth in southern England.
I'm John Pountney in South Wales, and I'm wondering what UAS, IRAW, JKW means in the bottom of the screen, please.
Oh, God. On what screen?
On the screen I'm looking at, it says 9:42 p.m. UAS, IRAW, JKW. What, can you see that? What does it mean?
Maybe it's some kind of esoteric kind of occult spell. Which
and Nokian language.
Yeah.
Who is this? Who is coming? Yeah, I'm John Pountney. I'm in South Wales, which is still, when I last looked, in the south of Wales.
I'm Ross in Dorchester, southern England, and this time we expelled our Lifeforce.
Does James say where he is? I wasn't listening.
He does every time.
I do, yes.
Where do you say you are, James? In Poole?
I'm in Bournemouth. And
Oh.
to keep the law off my tail. Till the heat dies down.
He's only said it like for 39 episodes over 3 years, but I'm Ross in Dorchester, southern England, and this time we expelled our Lifeforce.
Have we got to the number of episodes yet?
What when we
39?
can stop? No.
No. No, has James read that out yet?
Yeah,
Yes.
39.
Yeah.
I just had an out-of-body experience for the whole of the start of this.
Yeah. Are we in a time delay or something? You're going to get...
Oh.
I think it's you reading out those magic words. It's just...
Is it really
way
number
now.
39?
39. Yeah.
I'm Ross in Dorchester, southern England, and this time we expelled our Lifeforce.
What's number 40 going to be?
Oh, well, we'll find out at the end of the episode, don't we?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I can tell you now if you want.
Yeah, go on. Tell us now.
It's going to be a listener's choice.
Oh, it's not us.
But we're going to get them to choose between...
Two good films.
No, The Bride of Dracula, Dracula's Prince of Darkness, Dracula's Risen from the Grave, or Taste the Blood of Dracula, because those are 4 of the 5 Hammer Dracula films we haven't done yet. So,
Brides of Dracula.
Prince of Darkness,
No, not Prince of Darkness.
Risen from the Grave,
No.
and Taste the Blood. So they're going to pick.
It's the first one and the last one. The middle two are really very boring.
Okay, well,
And that one of them is really 60s. I'll let the listener try and guess which one I think is like just the crappiest 60s pile of shit going.
I'll have to see what they come back with, John. Okay, back to the script. I'm Ross in Dorchester, southern England, and this time we expelled our Lifeforce.
But before we get right back into it, can I just check? Is it Tobe or is it Toby who?
I think it's Toby.
I've always said Tobe, but I've no idea really. I don't care.
Okay, I will say something to that effect.
I doubt he's listening.
Well, you know what people on the internet are like, aren't they? You know, I was going to say, has anyone else taken umbrage with this recently?
Oh, no.
19 minutes of moronic waffle,
Exactly.
or whatever it was.
Case in point.
Prattle.
Anyway,
Prattle.
I'm Ross in Dorchester, southern England, and this time we expelled our Lifeforce.
From the director of Poltergeist and the writer of Alien comes a terrifying new film.
I'm getting a very small radar cross-section. 150 miles long.
EGR's confirmed.
Tell them we have an artificial object out here.
In the tail of Halley's Comet, there's something wrong. Something ancient. Something evil.
Jesus. Houston, we have a problem.
Something's happening to me.
Something hungry. That's brought to Earth.
She's destroyed worlds.
That girl was no girl. She was totally alien to this planet and our life form. And totally dangerous.
I just found a body in Hyde Park.
Lifeforce.
Close your eyes.
Visited you how?
In my mind.
Let it go!
It's already spreading. You didn't stop it. It's too late.
Come. Be with me.
Lifeforce. The terror has just begun.
Yes, here we go. So, Lifeforce, aka Space Vampires, is a
Yes.
1985 science fiction horror film directed by Tobe or Toby. We're not 100% sure how you say it. I'm going to say Tobe for the sake of it. Hooper, adapted by Dan O'Bannon, writer of Alien, no less, and Don Jacoby.
You wouldn't guess, would you?
It's such a rip. The start is such a rip-off. Anyway, and Don Jacoby, and starring the amazingly named Steve Railsback, Peter Firth, Frank Finlay, Matilda May, and the legend that is Sir Patrick Stewart. It also features John Forbes Robertson as the Minister, and Ross has put, do you remember where we last saw him?
Does anyone remember?
No.
He's
No, I can't.
in. He's either in Satanic Rites of Dracula or the one with the masked man.
So he was Dracula in the Kung Fu Dracula film we watched.
Oh, I'm not talking about him.
Yeah.
I'm talking about who played the Home Secretary, because we've seen him before. As
Okay,
well.
well, that's the
Yes.
next one. So,
And Aubrey Morris as Sir Percy, the Home
Yeah.
Secretary.
so he was the gravedigger in The Wicker Man.
Oh yes, I knew his face.
Yeah.
I thought he was one of the coven, Dracula's coven in Satanic Rites of Dracula.
He's in one Hammer film, but I think it's a mummy one.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So the film is based on Colin Wilson's 1976 novel, The Space Vampires, and more on Colin Wilson and the original stories of this in a bit. I've done a little bit of homework, guys. Brace yourselves. It portrays the events that unfold after a trio of humanoids in a state of suspended animation are brought to Earth after being discovered in the hold of an alien spaceship. This was the first film of Hooper's 3-picture deal with Canon Films. More on these
First and
gentlemen
last.
too. The other two films are the remake of Invaders from Mars and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Prior to Lifeforce, Hooper was originally offered the script for E.T., but turned it down. Spielberg then suggested Hooper direct Poltergeist, a project that he had written himself and had planned on directing. He took the job, and Spielberg went on and to direct E.T., and most people also believe that he had his hands on Poltergeist too. Before Hooper, Michael Winner, no less, was offered
Winner's
the
dinners.
Calm down, dear.
Exactly, yes. Car insurance stalwart towards the end of his life was offered the Lifeforce director's gig, but it didn't work out. And Billy Idol said he'd been offered a lead role as a vampire by Hooper, who had directed the video for Dancing with Myself, which I will not sing at this point. If it had been
Dancing with myself.
that was almost Dancing with Tears in My Eyes by
If
Cure
it's-
then.
that's exactly what it was, James, because I don't know the tune to.
Dancing
with myself.
I wanna be. Oh, I've ended up singing it anyway. Anyway, he turned it down due to touring commitments. It has been suggested that this is in fact a remake of Hammer Films Productions' Quatermass and the Pit. More on that later on in an interview.
Oh, I think it's a mixture of a lot of Quatermass.
It's all sorts has been chucked into the blender.
It's blatantly, I was going to say basically, but it's blatantly all of the Quatermasses put together.
Yeah.
Yes. In an interview, director Tobe Hooper discussed how Cannon Films gave him $25 million free reign and Colin Wilson's book, The Space Vampires. Hooper then shares how giddy he was. I thought I'd go back to my roots and make a 70mm Hammer film. Hooper came up with the idea of using Halley's Comet in the screenplay rather than the asteroid belt as originally used in the novel, as the comet was going to pass by the Earth.
In 1986,
yes.
Following
could
the
you
film's
remember?
release.
There was
Yes,
something
I can.
about. There was some kind of like a record that came out with like people dressed up as like creatures who lived on the Halley's Comet.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I remember Halley's Comet.
I remember the fuss about it happening.
Yeah.
I do reckon every 76 years, isn't it? So we will probably see. I reckon we'll probably see it come back
we'll
again.
all be dead.
No,
Hopefully there'll be a remake of this in time for the next pass of the comet. When is the next... Cleaver, you need to find out when is the next time that's going to happen.
Okay.
Because I'm sure in 1986 I probably thought, ooh, that's a long way in the future. And now it's probably like 2030 or something, isn't it?
2061.
Oh, that's still quite far
30
away,
years.
isn't it?
Dead.
Anyway, I will. Anyway, Colin Wilson, the author of the source material, was unhappy with the way that the film turned out. He wrote of it.
Really?
Yes. John Fowles, he of the French Lieutenant's Woman fame, had once told me of the film that The Magus was the worst movie ever made. After seeing Lifeforce, I sent him a postcard telling him that I'd gone one better. According to interviews with Bill Mallon, who plays one of the male vampires, the film went over schedule during production. Because of this, some important scenes were never shot, and that is clearly the case. And the film was shut down at one point because the studio had simply run out of money. There are some huge jumps in narrative explanation at times in this film. More on this to come. The film marks the fourth project to feature special effects produced by Academy Award winner and titan of the industry, John Dykstra, creator of the Dykstraflex process, no less.
What's that?
That's like the special effects camera, Ross.
Oh, okay.
Right? So, like when when the camera would go past spaceships, make it look like the spaceship was in flight.
Oh, okay, cool.
Right. So he had worked on 38 films, including, and biggest and best of all, of course, he worked on Star Wars. He was the kind of lead SFX guy on the original Star Wars, and then had a falling out with John Lucas. Oh, blasphemy! What has just happened to my brain?
John Lucas.
John Lucas?
Whoa, is that a Mandela effect? Are we slipping into
Oh my God. Oh no, leave that in. But God, that is like actual blasphemy for me, and I'm so sorry to any fellow Star Wars fans listening. He had a falling John Dykstra had a falling out with George Lucas, which led him to leave Industrial Light and Magic. This is all really beautiful. Yeah. There's if you've got Disney Plus, there's a really brilliant like multi-part documentary about the history of Industrial Light and Magic, and they go into this in quite forensic detail. It's good. It's good. It's really worth watching. That's like when he came back from like shooting it in England, and they'd done none of the special effects shots, and he almost had a mental breakdown.
They was all having like sitting in a bin outside. For a paddling pool.
Yeah. Anyway, right. Once again, we're only going to get one star here, aren't we? He also works on, of course, then Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin.
I thought there's a big Star Trek motion picture feel to the start of this.
Especially how the EVP, the spaceships, spacesuits were flying around in space.
Yes.
Interesting.
And he then also went on to work on the original, I'm assuming, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1 and 2, and then the last 3 Quentin Tarantino films.
Oh, wow.
His last IMDb credit, unfortunately, is that fan-made Spider-Man film that's getting some justified heat because the racist slurs are used by some of the cast while promoting the film. Good grief. Right. The umbrella-like alien spaceship was modelled after an artichoke, whilst the miniature London destroyed in the film was actually the remains, as discussed in the last episode, of Tucktonia, a model village near where Ross and I grew up, near Christchurch. But
those parts were just amazing. I thought they were fantastic. This film looks so expensive, but it's the biggest pile of shit. It's just I absolutely loved it. I went into this film thinking, another pile of crap that Cleaver's chosen. It's going to be like
Extra.
fucking that. Yeah, it's going to be extra again on that fucking awful Jack the Ripper film. And from the first minute, I was like, this is really engrossing. It's absolute rubbish. What amazed me is that it came out the year before Alien, or in my mental canon, the same year as Aliens. Because I thought
Aliens,
this came,
yes.
I thought this came out in 1986, and this couldn't be as far from Aliens. And Aliens was probably shot in England as well, wasn't it? So
yes, it certainly was. Yes.
Like, why is this set in Britain? There's so many questions about.
Yeah.
Well, I think the whole.
Like, why is the guy that made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre then come to do a film with like shots of the Houses of Parliament in it?
I really think that
Tax
he wanted.
purposes.
I think he was a massive Quatermass fan, and I really think he was trying to do Quatermass.
For £25 million.
Yeah.
Anyway, but more on the Globus, the Globus brothers, who are the creative forces behind Canon. In a second, so it says the initial director's cut was 128 minutes long. This is 12 minutes longer than the final version, which had several scenes cut, most of them taking place on the space shuttle Churchill. According to an interview he gave on the UK talk show Wogan in 1985, most of Nicholas Ball's performance ended up on the cutting room floor. And Matilda May, who plays Naked Space Vampire Lady, that's her official name in the script, had to learn her lines phonetically for her audition as Space Girl because she didn't know any English at the time. She then went on to learn the language during the 6 months that she had spent in England during this movie. Now, Patrick Stewart has said several times that Hooper was his favourite director to work with, which Ross has put is rather unkind to Jonathan Frakes. Fair point. So before we get into this properly and never see the breakdown, the two things that I really, really wanted to point out to the audience before we get into the meat of it all, I can get back to looking at you guys again now. Hello. Is number one, of course, this is a Canon Group movie, and for our generation, the Canon Group, oh my god, they made such a wide variety of films. Like, for example, they took up and did like the Death Wish sequels. Yes, they did.
Mission in Action.
Missing in Action and Delta Force with Chuck Norris.
American Ninja. Superman 4.
And amazingly, yes, when the Soulkinds gave up on the rights to Superman, they said, "Oh, we'll have them," and they did Superman 4 in Milton Keynes. Of course, famously,
maybe they just loved Britain.
Oh, tax. They got massive tax breaks, didn't they?
That film was like 86 or 87, wasn't it?
They had huge tax breaks. Yeah, massive tax breaks. And then, of course, the Master of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, I love that film.
Whoa!
And if, just by dear listener, if you're listening to this going, wow, yes, this was a slice of my childhood as well, I beseech you all, you can watch it on...
It's on YouTube.
Well, there you are. Ross is saying YouTube. It's available. You can. It's on Amazon as well, and it's called Electric Boogaloo: The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films, and it's fantastic. It's really,
it's very
really
good.
It's a tremendous couple of hours. So I really wanted to get that.
Basically, they used to make up posters for films which hadn't been made, and then go to Cannes and like sell them as if they've sold them, and then if they got enough money, then they would go away.
They'd go make them. Yeah. Terrific.
If I was to pitch this film in that style, and I did this to you both earlier as a voice note.
Yeah.
This is the director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Directs Alien in the style of a Timothy Dalton Bond film.
Yeah.
Which is quite hard to
I put Alien written by James Herbert, I think.
Yeah, maybe. But also it's a bit or maybe it's Moonraker remade by it's just mad. Basically, if you put a gestalt together, is gestalt the right word, James?
Yes.
Of our three brains, this would be this film would be our three brains.
Yeah,
you can guess the parts which are Cleaver's parts.
Yes.
And then me and James get the rest of the narrative. But it's just wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
What a film.
Someone
Crazy.
I put on Twitter tonight. Said, what do people think of this film? And loads of our followers are saying they love it.
Loved it.
Yeah.
But one person said it's a mate. So this is Xenon. Oh, it's a long name. Muck.
Yep.
No, laughing. Yeah. Xenon McLaughlin has said.
McLaughlin?
Might be that. Probably. I can't read. It says it's amazing. If you don't like one genre of horror, after 5 minutes it becomes something different.
Yeah.
Space horror, vampire, zombies, possession, worldwide hysteria, all in one movie.
Yeah. It really
Only some of which will be explained.
Yeah. Really reminded me of For Your Eyes Only, because it's got the guy in For Your Eyes Only who disappears and then you're just told that he's died off screen.
Yeah.
It really reminds me of Moonraker for obvious reasons, because it's got the spatials and stuff in it. And it really reminds me of the Dalton one, where the guys come into the farm or whatever it is, and I think they've got like grenades,
Living
in
Daylights
milk bottles.
Living Daylights.
And it's like it's shot in the same way. Whatever film stock it's shot on looks the same.
Yeah,
it looks like you've kind of. It's almost a bit like Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where it's like a film that is homaging other films, but actually it came out before some of those films.
Yeah.
Or it's got no knowledge of other films. Obviously, it really rips off Quatermass Experiment. The ideas of Quatermass and the Pit with the aliens being us, and then the ending with all the life forces being beamed up to the spaceship is the Quatermass conclusion, which was just called Quatermass when it was on
ITV. Yeah.
So that's the storyline, but in itself, it's a beautiful thing.
I gotta say, I first time I watched it, I kept falling asleep, and I was
says that in every film.
Even though the beginning, because I felt like you can tell that the space bit was truncated, because everything was almost like there's a little bit of this, a little bit. It was just so fast. All the cuts were like, well, we've seen a spaceship. We're getting close to it. Well, we're on board of it, and it was all cut together. It felt like they were really rushing that part. So it was but even though that was happening, I kept dropping off. But when I was watching it again at double speed, it's brilliant. When you watch it at double speed, you're like, especially like the bits at the end with all the explosions and stuff. You think, oh wow, look at this.
So I did a bit of homework because Colin Wilson, the guy who wrote this, he's a very interesting character. If you're not aware of who Colin Wilson is, in the 1960s, he wrote a hugely popular, a massively influential book called The Outsider, in which it was sort of quasi-philosophical. Some people call him like a neo-existentialist. But in short, it's like a literary review of the role of the outsider and what that means. So, for example, in Albert Camus' same titled novel, The Outsider, in the protagonists in D.H. Lawrence and things such as that, and then even kind of relating it to figures such as Jesus and saying, what does the role of the outsider mean to humans?
And Rowdy Roddy Piper and They Live.
And They Live. You've got it right now. This book was a massive hit, huge. I think it's kind of lost sometimes in the fog of history from the 60s how big The Outsider was. He then sort of wrote. He said this was going to be like part of a trilogy, and then the next two parts of it were really panned. So he's kind of him as a philosopher. That didn't really work out. But then he kind of kept going as a writer. And if you spend some time, just have a cursory glance at the old Wikipedia page, you'll see that he then got really into the occult.
Oh, cool.
Right. Yeah, right. And here we go for this novel. And then started writing about life after
Space
death.
vampires.
Space vampires. And like Space Vampires is like his 53rd novel or something like that.
Whoa.
He was extremely proficient. And this is just this is the description of the novel. And bearing in mind what we're going to be talking about in a bit, you can really see how, the things that we've already said, which is this film is like 4 different things in one, and there's so much different stuff. Listen to the original DNA of it, and then we can point out how madly they go and riff on it. So it says, in the late 21st century, so already different, far out in a nearby asteroid belt, a gigantic derelict castle-like alien spaceship is discovered by the space exploration vehicle Hermes. Obviously
not Churchill.
Not Churchill anymore. The space shuttle Churchill with a picture of Edmund Halley in it.
Yeah.
A real big picture of Edmund Haley, which was bonkers. Anyway, right, so this vehicle, commanded by Captain Olaf Carlson, investigating the spaceship's interior, the astronauts first discover the desiccated corpses of giant bat-like creatures. Big tick, yep. The 3 glass coffins, tick, containing 3 immobilized humanoids, 2 male and 1 female, tick. Preserved in a state of suspended animation. Returning to Earth with the preserved humanoids, Carlson discovers the true nature of the beings when one of them kills a young reporter, who Carlson illicitly allowed to view the body. The woman kills her victim by completely draining his life force, and when Carlson attempts to intervene, partially draining him of energy as well. Carlson survives but is unable to prevent the woman from escaping from the hospital. Carlson joins forces with Dr. Hans Verlader. Okay. So now not a man from the SAS.
Oh, yeah, we need to talk
in
about
a trench coat.
Yeah.
A scientist researching energy vampirism and longevity to find the escaped vampire and recapture her. In the course of their investigations, they discover that the aliens can transfer from one body to another, and that the other 2 have also escaped. And they also discover the potential for energy vampirism and more generalized voluntary energy transfer that exists in all humans, and the parallels between vampirism, criminality, and sexual fetishization. Right. At last, Carlson tracks down the vampires in London, their leader having possessed the body of the Prime Minister. But their confrontation is averted when, and now here we go, from the representatives from the Neoth Korgai, the vampires' original race, appear and offer the vampires, the Ubo Saltha, as they call themselves, the chance to regain their original nature as higher dimensional energy beings. The vampires accept joyfully, but then destroy themselves upon regaining the ability to see themselves for what they had become. An epilogue set nearly a century later reveals that Carlson had used the techniques of benevolent energy transference he'd learned via his encounters with the vampires to live an extraordinarily long life, and possibly had achieved a kind of transcendence upon his death.
That sounds very 60s, doesn't it?
So it does, right? And how more kind of philosophical, life after deathy, and also how more occult and more low key that is. This does not feature London going totally bonkers.
Or people exploding.
Exploding.
A naked woman appearing for 98% of the film.
Of the film, exactly. So there's some bits like, so when I read that, I was like, oh, I get it, right, okay, because all of a sudden, when it suddenly cut to she's in somebody else's body now, and it's a different actress, I was like, what the fuck? What? Why is that happening? And it's like, okay, right, so that was in the book, but the way that it's handled is so mad and so quick. And as we were just saying, clearly either bits weren't filmed or bits were cut. Yeah. But anyway, there you go. So, dear listener, there you go. That was the original story, and now we can kind of drive straight into it.
So 40 minutes in.
That's right.
The film starts.
This is dedicated to what's his name, Cleves? Who do we dedicate this episode to?
Mr. Moronic Prattle. I can't remember.
Yeah, what was his name?
Oh, I can't remember.
So we've done 40 minutes before starting the film, which I think is a titanic effort, boys. Well done. This is amazing.
Thanks.
So, spaceship. They find a big spaceship. They go in there. It looked, like you said, John, very Star Trek the Motion Picture, isn't it?
It's super. Yes, 100%. And there's bat creatures in there, and it looks a bit HR Giga, and it's all, but not quite as good as Alien. And then you remember that the guy who wrote Alien wrote this film or something.
with notes found down the back of his sofa.
But it's very strange seeing a British space program.
All
isn't it?
The British part is hilarious, just very odd, and that's what really. If this film had been set in, America, I think I would have thought this is rubbish. But the Britishness of it, where you've got this kind of big money American production with not quite A-list British actors appearing in it. Some are A-list now, like Patrick Stewart, but Patrick Stewart at the time was just a theatre actor. Frank Finlay was a very big TV actor. But you've got loads of Doctor Who villains and people. The guy from Ghostlight in this. You've got the guy from The Green Death in it who turns into a mummy. They go. So one of Hugo Drax's recommissioned, what do you call them? Space shuttles is in space.
Yeah.
Yes.
With some big solar wings, which look like they just fall off if it actually flew anywhere.
Yeah, but these enormous solar wings, when they fold them up, where do they go? Because they're so big, it would just take up the whole space.
And also, the interiors of the spaceship are much, much bigger than a space shuttle. Aren't
Huge.
they?
I thought that was very roomy. And also, I really love how they went in the voiceover. They went, and it's got to Halley's Comet via a new form of accelerant engine, which means that there's no zero gravity on board. I was like, because they can't be bothered
to float them around.
Do zero gravity.
But of course, when it stops, there's still gravity, isn't there? So then they see this big spaceship that looks a bit like a big
100 and something miles long, isn't it?
Long.
yeah,
It's
it's like a
huge,
big umbrella or something. So they're like, "Oh, let's go and have a look at that." And it's hiding in Halley's Comet, isn't it? So they go in and have a look, and it's basically the same as the spaceship in the start of Alien inside. And then they find these big bat creatures, which is basically the same as Quatermass in the Pit when they find the insect creatures in the spaceship. Because they're
also desiccated.
Yeah. But then they go into another room, which looks a bit like a Bradley Walsh kind of quiz show set. Where there's two naked men and a naked woman.
I put it like a mixture between Cerebro and Superman's Fortress of Solitude. With
A little bit like,
a lot of perspex. The most, and I've put down perspex, the most science fiction of materials, isn't it? They're like, what is this? I was like, it's the thing that we all had to make a box out of in GCSE woodwork.
CDT,
CDT.
So later on, they say that they'd taken the form of what they wanted to see when they were coming there, which is interesting. That the women also managed to have makeup put on her as well.
Yes.
So if I'd gone in that spaceship, I would have seen a 1966 Mini Cooper S Mark II that would have been talking to me through the grill, maybe, because they're like about £25,000 now. I'm never going to be able to afford. So what do they all decide they want to have a catch up with the lady, don't they? Basically,
Well, just basically saying. And this is something they didn't really explain. He starts saying, "I feel like I've been here before."
Yes.
Oh, Renee.
Yeah, and they're all like saying how like hot shit is, and then like the female people on the ship are like rolling their eyes. But you'd think like they would be like someone later on. Someone says that they were overwhelmingly sexually attracted to someone, and it was.
I've written that line down.
But you'd think that the women would be having the same reaction to the men on there as well, but it's not.
The women,
they're the more
women on the
species,
spaceship at this point are the only positive personification of women in this entire film.
Absolutely, yes.
But either they're seen as this mad vampire naked woman, for some reason a psychiatric nurse who is taken over and then becomes a kind of,
but also into bondage,
a kind of sex worker type person, for no apparent reason. And then in a sequence that looked a bit like Last of the Summer Wine.
Let's talk about when we get to it.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So where are we? So they've decided to take the naked people back into the spaceship now, haven't they?
Yeah.
So they've got one of the bat things. So they get a big
cargo net sort of thing.
Yeah, they get a big net to put over that.
Yes.
Which obviously you've not seen any of them carry those nets into the spaceship.
No.
What? That's what I put. I put down that my thing is they said, "Quick, let's put the desiccated one in a specimen bag," and I've just put it's just a big net.
Yeah,
where this big
but
net has
none
come
of you
from,
have carried.
It's just which I handily have here.
It's just like the web which Nicholas Hammond's Spider-Man would used to like fling out from under
his wrist.
Yes.
And then also.
I haven't taken notes then, so I can't remember what happens next.
Okay, so then after that, it then kind of cuts to, they're like, right, okay, well, let's get back.
30 days later, isn't it?
Later, that's right. And then I put, as you said, John, I put down, they then say, Admission Control, Great Britain. And I said, that's just naturally funny.
Yeah.
Just the notion that we would be in charge in any way, shape or form.
Yeah, and
calamitous country.
And we know what Mission Control looks like in Houston. Mission Control in England is a man sitting in an office with net curtains up, watching television on a Rumbelows rented TV at the corner and smoking heavily.
Many official buildings were sparsely attended to, weren't they? More of that. Right. Okay. So we then find out, that basically the space shuttle has come back. They can't get in contact with them in any way, shape, or form. Fortunately, NASA managed to get a space shuttle up in about 10 seconds. Which, of course, if you know anything about how long it takes
Columbia
to prep for a flight.
And you know they're American because they're wearing baseball caps when they go up, whereas the British ones weren't.
And they also say rescue on them, which I think is quite cool because it's like a special rescue space shuttle. Yeah.
And then they then find, as you know, they get hold of the Churchill and they find out that it's been it's pencil in it.
That sounds like an innuendo.
It's literally,
this whole film is an innuendo.
Grab hold of my Churchill.
It's literally like a comic strip presents.
At times it is. It absolutely
you expect
is.
Mel, what's his name that died of codeine?
Mel Smith.
You expect him and all the others to turn up.
Morons from outer space.
Yeah.
Well, the British captain of the British co-captain of the Churchill, he often appeared with Mel Smith in. Do you remember Colin Sandwich? A sitcom he did.
The guy?
That's tickling the back of my mind.
And he was, again, sorry listeners, especially sorry our foreign listeners.
Wow.
But that was a sitcom that Mel Smith did where he worked in the complaints department of a train company, it's still British Rail.
Yeah.
So like British Rail complaints. And so that was just the setting. It was just his life working in the complaints department of British Rail, and it's called Colin Sandwich. And he was one of the co-workers, I believe. Anyway, there you go. Everything's connected. So when the American astronauts get on board the Churchill, do it. They find that a fire has broken out, which is, that looks quite good.
Yeah.
Everyone's been killed. But then we don't know what the deal is with the astronauts because it's really hard to identify the bodies. But our space vampire friends are untouched inside their Perspex boxes. So they're still in there. But then we're also told that the escape shuttle or the escape thing, which,
missing.
Weirdly enough, despite the fact it's a massive crew, is only big enough for one person.
And also looks like the top of a rocket because that's where the escape capsule used to be. But they kept that and just put it inside the shuttle.
So inside, so they're like, so maybe someone's got out.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun,
but why does it take him several days to get to Earth?
Yeah.
Who knows, Ross? There's that. Well, and also, we'll get into it in a bit. We'll find out, in the as the film goes on, we find out that he was hell bent on those space vampires not getting to Earth. So I just thought, why not just point
it in the other direction?
Into the depths of space or into the fucking sun. Rather than I'll set fire to it and then try and jump out of it. It's all slightly weird. Anyway, more on that. We'll keep going. So anyway, the our space vampires are taken back to Mission Control Great Britain, hilariously. And then they start to kind of prod around and examine them. The bit, once again, very innuendo-esque. They said, how have we managed to get into the case of the one alien? And he just went, it popped open of its own accord.
Yeah.
Strange turn of phrase.
And
just like my trousers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the guy who's left to guard them, guard the woman.
One person.
One person. Yeah.
One person is on guard.
The first aliens they ever find ever.
Yeah. No one's that bothered.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to have a look at her boobs. And, and tries to sort of like pull back the
space boobs.
Yeah.
Space boob.
And then she comes alive, doesn't she?
She does.
The building they're in looks a bit like D.D. Denham's headquarters in Satanic Rites of Dracula.
Yes.
And I like to think that this film happens in the same world.
Yeah, Dracula's upstairs.
Well, that's also a film where a great plague is meant to visit planet Earth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brought about by Count Dracula himself. So I like to think that these two films are in the same canon, and it's about vampires. This is amazing.
Yes.
Right. So our space vampire, she kind of breaks having absorbed the life force of the one guy and leaving him for dead.
Turns him into Eddie from Iron Maiden.
Yes, he does. he looks very desiccated himself too.
But it's when they start doing that, the sucking the life force out of
they
the
were
guy.
very pleased with, weren't they?
Yeah,
They were very pleased with that special effect.
So the guy, the head of the space station place, is watching it on his TV, and then he seems to be the only person in the building, and he just pegs it, and they show him running down lots of stairs, going
in
through
a very dramatic way.
Yeah, going through lots and lots of glass doors.
Yes!
Door after door after door.
Why were there all those doors? There was no need to partition
And he's
off
the man
that corridor.
from For Your Eyes Only, isn't he? He's very good in For Your Eyes Only, where he's the villain in For Your Eyes Only. One of the villains.
Yeah, and then she sucks the life force out of him as well.
Well, only a little bit.
Yes.
Only a wee bit.
Yeah.
I said kind of keeping it close to the original when she took a little bit of the life force of the captain.
But why she does this is not explained, really, is it?
Absolutely.
Maybe she was full up. She was
maybe, yeah.
She then they say, "Quick, the alien! She's escaped!" And they go, "Don't worry." She's one woman. She won't be able to get out of this building. Which she then does with absolute consummate ease by using a combination of kind of space vampire powers. Yeah. Basically being able to turn on a very powerful wind machine.
Mm-hmm.
And sort
she
of
breaks
blow
some
people
windows.
out.
Well, she uses power she doesn't use later on in the film. Like she can use like the force to sort of like move things around. She's got that effect which they did a lot in the original Star Trek when someone would touch on it and make it like an electric shock sort of sound. Like, and again, this whole building is guarded by free men, and they're just eating biscuits.
Yeah, and one of them tries to capture her using
with a biscuit.
Yeah.
We all got that. So she walks down the stairs, and once again, it is like a British kind of sitcom sex comedy. Oh, blimey, dearie, what's going on here? Oh, what's all this? And again, they don't seem over worried about it. But then, as my two colleagues have just said, one of the security guards goes, "Come here. It's all right. It's all right." And then tries to entice her with what looks like a custard cream biscuit.
Yeah.
Which is quite remarkable, really.
And then she force chokes him. Like
Yeah. And just walks straight out.
Do you think that the director had, and the actor, they had a bit of a meeting about this, said, I'm going to try and improvise this scene. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and tempt her with a biscuit. Tobe Hooper is like, yeah, that's a great idea, man. It's like,
I feel my character is a man who's been in security for most of his life, but there's something inside him. There's a spark of ingenuity, Tobe. There's a spark of ingenuity. And I feel he may use a biscuit.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong to suggest this?
And I think Toby Hooper said, I don't know, because the last film Spielberg did all this. So yeah, just do what you want there.
Are we saying that he supposedly directed Poltergeist?
Yeah. When you listen to look at it, a lot of the people said he just set it all up, and then Spielberg just would turn up and direct it.
Well, it's obviously a Spielberg film, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there was something he wasn't allowed to direct two films at the same time, so that he just got some. Because he was doing E.T. just round the corner at the same. So.
That's mad, isn't it?
Well, it's amazing that at that point in his life, he made. I think Poltergeist is amazing. He just made those both films like simultaneously, and he had the sort of the energy to do that. It's insane.
It's mad. Yeah.
So also Frank Finney is just hanging around there in the middle of the night as well.
Frank Finlay's he's in what's the word? Introduced at this point, isn't he?
Yeah.
So
he's a scientist. He's a scientist, but then he also says, "I'm a necromancer."
Yeah.
Or something bonkers.
Yeah, just takes any opportunity to just go, what do you think happens after people die?
Whoa! Ross!
But before that, the first time the human race has ever come across an alien being, it's escaped. Mm-hmm. You just send one man from the SAS to come and sort it out. You don't.
And why the SAS?
Exactly.
Right. I knew this had come because, guys, this was peak SAS. By this point, they had exploded into the public's consciousness, especially in this country.
Wins, is it? Yeah.
Who Dares Wins with Lewis Collins. We'd had the Iranian embassy siege, and this notion of they are like our elite fighting force. So therefore, if it's basically they can do the lot. But however, he doesn't turn up in uniform He just turns up in
polo
like
neck,
this
leather jacket.
in polo neck and a trench coat, which he's very fond of.
Yeah.
He's never without this.
No, he doesn't
without
take
the
it
trench
off,
coat.
does he?
And the actor who plays him, he went. I thought, where do I know him from? What was it? He was in The Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, he was also.
He's in
one of the
all
Russians
sorts of
in.
stuff.
Yeah,
He's in Spooks or something,
Yeah.
isn't he?
Yes,
Isn't he the
yeah.
main guy in Spooks?
Yeah.
yeah.
And he was in a thing just before. No, he was in a sci-fi BBC thing slightly before this, maybe 5 years before this, called The Flip Side of Dominic Hyde, which is quite niche, but actually really good fun, and I heartily recommend that to our listener.
Yeah.
I'm just looking up. I think Frank Finlay did play Van Helsing at one point.
Ooh.
For
Lada.
BBC. Did he play? Yeah, he played Van Helsing in the 1977 BBC Count Dracula, where Louis Jourdan
Yes.
was Dracula. So he's got previous as a kind of vampire slayer, so he knows his stuff. He plays this part very much as Van Helsing, doesn't he? It's a very kind of stoic man of science who just, for some reason, keeps talking to people about his pet philosophy, which is what happens after death.
Yes. Right, so this is marvellous. So, and again, so I've brought up all the character names so we don't do that dreadful thing for our dear listeners going, then the bloke, then the man.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so
They've
at
not
this
got very
point,
memorable names, have they? They
no,
got called.
but so the SAS commander, who is Kane, he then turns up, and I've put, thank Christ, the army have finally arrived. The press have also got wind that something's gone down.
Yes, this bit's great.
And also something which I thought, oh man, that's something you don't really hear anymore. He goes, look, gentlemen, this is a D-notice situation.
Yeah, I love a D-notice.
Yeah, me too, John. And for our foreign listeners, that is in Great Britain. If something is so top secret, they don't want the press to report it, they can slap a D-notice on them, which says that you cannot report this. This will be, in defense of the realm. So So that was quite cool.
Well, they take a man's camera off him, take the film out, give it back to him, and then say sorry.
Yeah. Has that ever happened to you, John?
No.
Right.
It's very British, though, isn't it?
Right.
Sorry, old man.
And then we get kind of so Kane sort of tries to piece together what's gone on. And he then is talking to Frank Finlay, who is Falada, and there's the amazing line in which he says to, oh no, wait, first of all, at this point as well, don't we then find out that Carlson has made it back to Earth?
Not yet, no.
Okay,
No,
okay.
not yet.
Because all I'll say is, because I can't remember who said it, sorry, listeners, but at one point he says, it was the most overwhelming feminine presence I've ever encountered. And then the response was, sexual? Yes, overwhelming and horrible. I just thought, come on, mate.
It made me think of
I'm
Mrs.
sorry.
Thatcher in the 80s.
And then, as Ross mentions, there is the most incredible piece of dialogue. It was worth watching the movie for. So Kane talks to Falada, and they're talking about. He's like, So Kane says, "I know you're a scientist. Tell me what's going on here." And he's like, "Well, you may know that I'm a scientist, but I'm also interested in the afterlife, and most people don't like to talk about such things." And then he goes to him. Well, Kane says to Falada, "Is there life after death?" Falada goes, "Do you really want to know?" There is a long pause, and Kane goes, "No." and then Falada goes, "So anyway, in answer to your question, yes." It's like, this is mental.
Whilst this happens, the alien is just wandering around the place.
About London. Yeah. Do you think there's life after? Do you want to know? Actually, now you said no. Well, I'm going to tell you. It's yes. And then he doesn't go, how do you fucking know?
Yeah. And what's this got to do with anything?
With anything. Yeah. So, yes, amazing.
Dear
amazing.
listener, this film is an absolute masterpiece.
There's a really nice shot now of like the camera going in between the two male coffins, which I thought was a really nice shot, and then going up to where they're being guarded by they've obviously brought in the army, and then the men get up, and then the soldiers are shooting the male aliens, And I thought that was very reminiscent of Terminator.
Yeah. It's very well done as well. The bullets go in and it looks very realistic.
Lots of broken glass flying around of people.
Yeah. To be honest, visually, this film is well directed and it looks glossy, and it's hard to put your finger on what makes this watchable and what makes something like Extra unwatchable. And I don't know what it is.
$28 million, I think.
Like, I watched this engrossed and thought, this is brilliant, because it's
I really thought you would say I didn't watch it. I thought you was going to say it got halfway through and I stopped.
No, I loved it because it was just like. And now we're bringing out Patrick Stewart to do a mad.
Here he comes.
To do a mad turn on the floor where he's like,
"Oh no, I'll go." Yeah,
hang on.
Let's get to that.
Right. So, as Ross says, amazingly, once again, not only are these the first ever aliens we've ever encountered, but we now know that they are deadly. And that so therefore we will leave them guarded by 2 paratroopers, one of whom looks less fit than me. And he looks. I was like, come on, I think they'd have a few more people around them than this.
Yes.
But anyway, they too wake up and exit, or seemingly exit. They seem to just sort of get past the paratroopers, no problems.
You don't see what
whatsoever.
happens at all, I don't think.
You do not.
That's just.
But whilst the machine gun's going off, do you have another shot of them all running through the corridors and running through all the glass doors and stuff to get there?
Yeah.
So they then decide that that what they're going to do is they're going to do an autopsy on the guy who the space lady, the guy who wanted to touch her, and she took his life force. And so they're about to do the autopsy on him, and he's not dead.
But it's an amazing model, isn't it?
This bit's really good, yeah.
It reminded me of the alien, like Mac from Mac and Me, dreadful McDonald's knockoff of E.T.
Well, it's Eddie without his denim clothes on and his leather waistcoat. It is for animatronics at the time. I think it's really, really good.
Apparently, it took 10 days to film that sequence.
Oh my god!
Yeah. So basically, he's a desiccated like corpse which comes back alive, and then there's the first case of which happens a lot where lots of people are just standing watching.
Yes,
looking scared. Lots of reaction shots. Well, so basically, the desiccated, half dead one sucks the life force out of another person. So then he comes back to normal, but then turns the other person into like a zombie.
Well, he starts necking with a guy, doesn't he? But there's absolutely no question of any homosexual content within this film whatsoever.
No.
So what I'm saying is that it's fine for it to be woman on man sexual lust. But when the man vampire pulls in another man, they're not all suddenly saying, "Oh my god, that
it was
man
overwhelmingly sexual."
They just forget that part totally, and it's just like another guy gets his face sucked off. And then he becomes young again, then doesn't he?
Yeah. Then he gets sedated by one of. But you think, why would they have the drugs to sedate someone in a room where you're doing an autopsy? Just in case they come alive, and then you need to sedate them.
He's not dead.
And amazingly, they then say, "Put him in an isolation cell." And when we see it later on, that's just a storage cupboard. Isn't it? It's just like they keep like loads of bottles of bleach. Right. So, what then happens is is that when they then get the Home Secretary involved, Percy? Does he turn up at that point?
No, before that, hang on a second. I'm just spinning. No, they get word that they found the body of the woman in the park.
Oh, right. Yes.
So they go to the park and they turn out, no, it's a different woman. Because it's a desiccated. And they say it turns out.
How many times are we going to say desiccated in this podcast?
And it's a sex worker. Who
is it?
Yeah, because they say she was a sex worker, which the space alien woman has stolen her clothes, which turns out later on to be like a purple rubber Mac. When you actually see what clothes she's taken.
Is that what happens?
Yeah, and then there's 2 boys who were saying, "Oh, we was watching them because we thought, there might be, some dirt."
The line is, Ross, if we thought we came back because, well, if we could see them doing something.
Yeah, and they're like,
what they say.
This scene was written by James Herbert.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, teen pervs are involved. Yep.
So then they take the SES take the desiccated sex worker back to the headquarters. And then
That's the only time that line is going to be used in this podcast, isn't it? Desiccated sex worker.
Sex worker.
It's an amazing.
I know
that's
your next T-shirt, Ross.
They're opening on the John Peel stage next year in Glastonbury, and they're an absolutely great band. That's Desiccated Sex Worker.
And then they, for some reason, go, I think I know there's a pattern with what's happening here. They work. They say something like every 4 hours they need to feed
2 hours,
2 hours or something.
Yes.
So they go down into the isolation cell, which, like James said, is like the base
storage
in the
basement. Yeah.
And then one of the original guy who became young suddenly goes old again.
Yeah.
And then they start poking him with a broomstick again. This is like price.
And then he blows up.
Yeah, it just starts crumbling around. This is like the priceless scientific value of but this poke it around with a. And again, the only 2 scientists in Britain who are allowed to do anything. Yeah, and that's where the Home Secretary turns up with his bow tie. And again, there's lots of reaction shots of ooh,
yes, there is a really good effect where the baddie from the Green Death in Doctor Who throws himself at the bars and then explodes. And that's really good. And they get covered in ash. Obviously, they're not wearing respirators or anything like that.
No.
You know,
no,
they've come into contact with an extraterrestrial race, but they're just going to go down there in a pinstripe suit. And
it's really nice to see that. Bearing in mind that we were very kind of sniffy about things like that in the 1950s. He's just going, kind of British stiff upper lip, like the original Quatermass one. Just get some sandbags and a blanket and it'll be fine. Kind of 40 years later, we
some
hadn't
water
learned
on
a
that
thing.
spaceship. Yeah,
that's right. Oh, don't worry about it. Just touch it. It's fine.
These exploding bodies are literally taken piece for piece from the Quatermass conclusion, because exactly the same thing happens in one of the episodes, but in a much it's horrible. It's a young girl and she explodes, and it's really whereas this is just quite comedic, isn't it? All of this is a bit like a Kenny Everett kind of
Yes, it is.
It's very Kenny Everett, isn't it?
And this is when the desiccated sex worker comes back alive. And there's a tracking shot where you see that, make sure that you can see the amount of pubes they put onto the on the model as well.
But the model is weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
because it kind of when it explodes, it kind kind of bubbles.
It looks like Vivian Westwood.
That's harsh. But
I think it was a bit of a sexy model.
Well, okay.
I think they tried to make it look sexy, and I think that was quite weird.
Yeah, and then she explodes as well.
She explodes.
But it's one of those things you feel like, imagine all the time they would have taken to make those things.
Just models.
Just to blow them up. But,
weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to make stuff like that. Practical, like they do all that stuff with computers now, and it looks shit. And this also looks shit, but it looks better because it's a real thing. And I think the impact of the explosions happening in real time with the actors is a lot more believable than actors just kind of in modern films just kind of mugging for the camera and then putting it all together in the edit.
But imagine the fear of the special effects guys and also the camera guys thinking, like, I've got one chance to get this right. If it doesn't blow up properly, that's it, we're fucked. If there's a hair in the gate or something, this is like weeks of work.
Hi, it's Ross from the General Witchfinders. Did you know that I also do another podcast with my friend David?
Hello. Well, my headphones are falling off. You're not taking this seriously, Ross.
David and I do our own supernatural research and investigations in our home county of Dorset. So, if you think that's up your street, why don't you give it a listen? It's Dark Darset, Darzet. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts.
It's not natural.
Meanwhile, we're told that amazingly, Carlton, the commander of the Churchill, has indeed survived.
Yes.
And he landed in Texas, in inverted commas, which, if that's Texas, You know, I'm a Dutchman. It didn't look anything. It was just a rain-swept Texas.
It was just in the dark as well.
It was just the dark. There was no... and he's given about 10 seconds recuperation time. Literally, the next shot is him walking down a corridor. And he's like, get him over here.
The edit is really weird.
I thought that, because I was like, what?
The voice is over the scene where he's already walking in, which is really strange. And all he's done is... all they've let him do is shave his beard off.
Yeah.
So he's been in space long enough to grow a beard.
Yeah.
None of the time frame on this makes sense.
Well, you kind of see a flashback of him like being the sole survivor on the Demeter, and and just like setting fire to like the thing. I thought you looked like your mate Matt James when he had his little beard.
He did. He has got a touch of Matt about him. Yeah.
But also they say something like, "We won't question you for very long because we know you probably rather be with a pretty young nurse,
young lady."
Yeah, it's like, what?
I know. Again, it's very of the time, isn't it? It's very, very of the time. And what he then tells us is when they got the vampires back on board, everyone started going a bit bonkers, including sort of like the radar engineer, for want of a better term. He allegedly went mad and smashed up the radio. And then one by one, they've all been killed off. He realized, he was like, oh my God, it's the vampires that are making us do this. Aye! And, you know, they're draining our life force. And then he's like, I had to do anything to stop them getting back to Earth. And so
he's English, don't do an American accent.
No, he's not. He's American.
Is he?
He's American.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'll take that back.
Jesus, mate.
He's American all the way through the film, please.
I'm sorry.
Right. It's the SAS officer's English.
How can you think? You know, we're talking about...
Date of birth.
Yeah, sorry.
Right,
I'm watching it with subtitles at the moment.
Right, okay. So he's like, I had to do anything to stop them getting back to Earth. So once again, our whole thing of just point it into deep space. Just point the shuttle in deep space or into the sun. But
he
anyway...
looks like Tommy Lee Jones a bit, I thought.
Little as well, yeah, some of that. And so he then says that he decided to set a fire on board to see to it that they were all killed. And then he escapes in the one-man escape pod. And so he's like, oh my God, they're here. I wouldn't know. That's the last thing I wanted.
But actually, I do really want to see her tits
but
again.
Then, yes, because that's what it all kind of turns out, doesn't it? Is that in fact, this is not perhaps the whole truth. And then we get back to
He's an unreliable narrator, isn't he, James?
He is indeed, John. So then we then get what is like, in many ways, the second film in this triumvirate. You know, so we've had like weird aliens. Now we get like this bizarre kind of psychodrama, which is odd, in that we learn that Carlson, because of him, we learn later on canoodling with space vampire, but he says, "Oh, I've got a connection with her," and he can like see where she is in inverted commas, and that's when we learn that she's taken on somebody else's, or you know, she's kind of possessed somebody else.
So essentially, again, the SAS man who's meant to be looking for the aliens is just sitting in a room watching the astronauts sleep.
He's having a nightmare, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's having a nightmare, and then he sees the actual bat form of the vampire. Then he sees the woman, and then they start having sex in some kind of crypt, which you find out later on where that is. But then he said,
perfectly normal.
And then Finley comes down and said, "Oh, I think that you're sharing some kind of psychic link with her. Have you ever been hypnotized?" And then he goes on to hypnotize him.
Yes.
Which is, again, what happens in the black and white Quatermass, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, good point. Good point.
It happens in... Is it not also the bit where they put the headset on in Quatermass and the Pit, and they have the flashbacks to when the Martians are...
Yeah. Good point, Joe.
So then we see the woman who is now... the woman alien has taken
another form,
and it's just wandering around a field, like John said, like in a bit of
in Yorkshire for no reason whatsoever.
No
why
reason
did they say she's gone so far afield? It's Yorkshire. It's mental.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, this is the first time I was like, what's actually happening now in this film? What has this turned into something else?
It looks a lot like around Avebury in Wiltshire.
It does.
Which is quite strange. And I thought, we're going to pull back and see Silbury Hill and say, this is to do with aliens. But then we don't. That doesn't happen at all.
Unfortunately not.
We segue into a sequence which can only be described as like an X-rated Last of the Summer Wine, as I said earlier,
Yes.
where a man in a white Volvo in a leather jerkin or something like that is kind of
seduced.
Yeah, propositioned by her, and she flashes her knickers at him in the car as he's driving along.
I wrote that this has gone very porno.
Yeah.
That was my note, and I've underlined the word very.
It's very Mary Millington kind of
Yes.
mid-70s weird soft porn, isn't it? Yeah, it's very strange.
So,
and we don't. Why is that happening? You're not really told why that's happening, are you?
But again, this
why
is all
she's jumped into another form?
Another person. Yes, exactly. There's no real rhyme or reason given for that.
No.
Why is she doing it? Why doesn't she just, take the life force of the guy right then and there? It was like, what? This is all bizarre. But then they're going to him. Can you tell the car, the license plate of the car? And he's like, yes, I can. And he just tells them it straight off. And so right, let's track that down. And so they then go, okay. It's they find the guy and they kind of intimate he's had a lot of sex, don't they?
Yeah.
Reading between the lines. I'm pleased that wasn't just me.
Yeah.
He's physically exhausted. He's basically been shagged to death, but he's still alive. But we're told that he's dropped her back at a psychiatric hospital where she works, and that's when I was like, what?
Why?
What's going on? This is
but also, is the psychiatric hospital meant to be in Yorkshire at this point?
Right. I thought so, John. Totally.
Yeah.
And also,
I thought that was at that point quite close to London, and I don't know why they dropped Yorkshire, and it was just.
I don't know. It's such an odd choice.
Yeah.
So they barge their way into her bedroom.
Hold on, just before we get up to that, Ross. I know that's always on your mind, but we should point out for people that the other big event that's going on is that the vampire spaceship has now turned up in Earth orbit, or is on its way, and we learn this because NASA are tracking it, and they go. Look at it! It's enormous. But then, what I really like is how the NASA engineer has to touch the screen.
Yeah.
Right. Just to say, look, there it is. Like he runs his finger across it. Like, yeah, we can see, mate. That was a really unnecessary.
You can tell
touch.
it's NASA because they got a room with about 3 TV screens and then clocks showed what time it is all around the world.
Yes, correct.
Tokyo, Moscow, probably.
So they establish that the vampire ship is now on if not a collision course for Earth. It's going to be with us very, very soon. We then jump back to nights in Yorkshire, and our intrepid squad made up of Carlson, Kane, the SAS guy in his Mac, and the Home Office minister. They turn up via helicopter at this Yorkshire high-security mental hospital, and, as you said, bring out Patrick Stewart.
Oh,
we learned our man Patrick Stewart is
Jean-Luc Sir Pat.
Oh, before that, they burst into the woman's bedroom, and
no, they don't.
Yeah, I'm watching it now. Patrick Stewart comes in after they've.
All right, sorry, mate. Sorry. I thought that they landed in the helicopter and he came and met them off the helicopter.
Yeah, he does, and then they go.
Sorry. Yes, you're right.
Oh, that's 2 in 1 podcast, Cleaver. Right, anyway. Right, so they turn up. Patrick Stewart's like, this is all very... And he's full Patrick Stewart as well. The full Shakespearean... full Queen's English, all of that. And he's like, what's going on? This is all very funny. And they're like, right, but do you know where this nurse is? Yes. Right, we need to go and see her. And they burst into her room, which is the most bonkers 80s room, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's insane.
David Bowie posters.
The Bowie poster is from about 1977, so it's not even a contemporary poster.
Contemporary.
And a crying clown.
Something... Now, those were very popular in the early 1980s. I seem to remember one of my sisters had some kind of art featuring that as well. It is a clown, but it's like a French Poirot clown. And it's always a girl as a French Poirot clown. It was very popular in the 80s. You'll have to trust me, teenagers. So she's got that up, and then she's got all kinds of weird cartoons and
mumbo
odd
jumbo.
things up, bizarre stuff up. Anyway, Carlson basically grabs hold of her, and I felt this was quite uncomfortable, this sequence.
Yes.
And Kane, the SAS guy, is like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Don't ask me how, but I can tell that the alien is inside her." Okay, right, fine.
And then implies that she likes it when you're really rough with her, and then pulls her back down to show that she's got some whip marks on her.
The line, Ross, is this woman is an extreme masochist. So, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that the woman or is that the space vampire?
Exactly. They don't establish.
I think it's the woman.
Carlson says to Kane, "You might want to get out of the room while I'm doing this," which is weird. That's not cool. No. And then Kane sits down and goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm a natural voyeur." I was like, "Oh,
so weird. It's so weird.
This whole thing is making me really uncomfortable.
It's very
really unpleasant. Yes,
it's very odd.
It's not cool. And again, it's like another film. It's like some bizarre kind of psychodrama. It's weird. And then he's like, "Are you in there? Are you in there?" And I was like, "At which point?" And then they kind of established that she was in there, but she's not in there now. Am I right? Again,
I don't know. I thought she was still in there.
They kind of imply that she's gone somewhere else, but they don't, because I think it's setting up this twist, which is.
But where has she gone?
Well, that's the
twist.
They
say
they come down and say it's like some.
I see.
They say to Patrick Stewart, how well do you know the people in this hospital? And he goes, "Right, rather well, I think." And he goes, "All right, what about this? He's a fat man with a ginormous birthmark on his face." And I was like, Jesus, I think most people would probably be able to spot him. And he's like, "Yes, he's a child killer." And they then take him to the cell of the child killer. And it's like the most Victorian looking cell. He is fully... chained to the bed. He's been a very naughty boy.
Yeah, and apparently that was an ad-lib line by Patrick. He wanted to
wow.
It looks very much like the mental institution in Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell.
Or the place I lived in once, remember? The converted mental asylum?
Yes, yeah, I remember Cleves.
And then... this is the point when I sent my two co-hosts here a shot of my notes that I'd written. I just written in capital letters, "What the fuck is happening at this point?" Because they're like, "Do you think it's the child killer? Well, let's find out. Oh, don't disturb him." And then suddenly they attack Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they've established there's a special drug which will make it so that you can be hypnotized.
Yes.
And they get it, and then they stab Patrick Stewart with it, and then he has like a massive freak out.
It's brilliant. And I think when I've watched how actors work, I think that he went further than he said that he probably would do in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think the other guy went with it, and I just thought, this is mental. Like, imagine having to try and hold down Patrick Stewart.
But yeah, he goes absolutely. He's throwing himself around wildly, and
he's
then
like he looks like Ian Curtis of Joy Division.
He does at that point.
Horizontal.
And there was a point I thought, oh well, this is perhaps episode 39's moment when I can finally supersede. You're a country lad, you know what a rat sounds like, because Carlson grabs Patrick Stewart and just goes, "Where's your body?" The body goes on for about a minute of screen time. "Where's your body?" It's remarkable.
It's a brilliant film.
And the poor Audley doesn't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah. And then we get what I put down as a Poltergeist knockoff sequence. Like whoosh,
flying
around
it's well
the room.
done though, isn't it? With
and again, it's like from a different film.
Yeah. And the guy who plays Light in Ghost Light keeps coming in and looking incredulously around.
Orderly. Yeah,
in a kind of semi-comedic way.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell, isn't it, if it's meant to be comedic.
And then we then go, this is all part of some huge ruse that we knew the moment we turned up that the alien was in Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
You're like, then why did you go and do all that thing with that poor nurse?
Yes.
I didn't get all that part.
What? Yeah, that was, and this is when I put down, like, what is actually happening in this film?
Yeah.
And then the film changes gear yet again as we're told that Frank Finlay, aka our necromancer, whatever is it, Falada. Oh, Falada's on the phone for you. Okay. And what we then get, I've put is, hello, gentlemen. I've been involved in a massive action sequence, and now have some plot explication.
Yeah. But none of it was filmed. So don't worry about that
scene, and we are told, in once again, a scene that was quite clearly like cut for time or cut for money, that they found out that about the whole body swapping thing, and that the two male vampires, who up until this point had been totally forgotten about by no one was even mentioning them in the film, they took over the two paratroopers who were trying to kill them earlier.
Yeah.
So even though they had their own original faces, they were in the bodies of the paratroopers. It doesn't make any sense. So they've just been running around. But then we found that Frank Finlay says, "Oh well, I managed to kill one of them by doing the old-fashioned thing of ramming some iron into them."
Yeah, what was that? Because it looked like a top of a steeple or something, didn't it? Where did he get that
sword?
Yeah,
and again, that felt like because he has like a whole box of stuff dropped off to him. Like vampire hunting stuff. And I kind of read between the lines. I just thought, oh, well, obviously he's supposed to be somebody that's into all of this sort of stuff. And so he's go and get me, boys, go and get me my best vampire hunting kit. But it felt really weird and oddly tacked on. And then so they were like, oh, wouldn't you know it? That, the old myths about vampires, that's how you kill them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but not in the heart. It's a little bit lower than the heart. Yeah,
it's the power point or something, he says.
Yeah, it's where your chi is. I seem to remember from going to IKEA.
Okay, very nice. Well, from going to IKEA, did you say?
Aikido.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you said going to IKEA
as well.
When I had that guy who, he was... I went to Aikido and it was quite good when it started off, but then it got a little bit like wooey. And this guy
did he want you to come around his house, Ross?
Well, like the big sensei turned up and he had a big medallion of like crop circles around his neck. And while he was getting changed, he was standing in front of me with just his pants. So going, do you know what that is? Like pointing to his crop circle, and he goes. I said, yeah. So like,
do you want to see my crop circle?
Yeah. And he said, do you believe in them? I go, no. And he's going, well, there's a lot more in this universe than you know and stuff. And then later on, he was doing a thing where people would run at him and he would just like throw his arms out and everyone would just like fly everywhere because it was all like this whole like, mass hypnosis thing of like him being able to like use he was saying he's using his chi to throw people so he could do martial arts without touching anyone. And that's what I left.
Where is this man now?
I don't know. I left after that point because I was thinking
another incredible chapter in the life of Ross Cleaver.
Yeah,
right there. That's good, Ross. I love it. Right,
so the helicopter in Patrick Stewart back to London.
Yes, this is my favourite scene.
Yeah, so
it goes bonkers.
Tell us about
this point.
They're basically just inside a helicopter set with someone spraying fog at the window. Yes. And it looks really bad, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then there's a waxwork of Patrick Stewart and the other man.
Who both died, haven't they?
Who have both died. And blood starts coming out of their mouths and their eyes. And it turns into a naked woman that talks to them and then falls through the floor.
Yes. It's nuts.
And whilst this is happening, the whole of London has gone insane and gone into martial law.
This is also the sequence, Ross, when, once again, Fallada says to Coulson, what actually happened up there? You've got to tell me. And so during he then kind of bullies out of him. He's well, you know how I told you that, that the vampires killed all the crew. Oh, maybe a bit of a fib. It was me who smashed up all of the stuff because I'm obsessed with her.
Yeah.
I can't get her out of my mind, etc., etc.
But why did they do a big confrontation? Because there was no implication that he told any lies. There was no reason for them to have any suspicion of why.
I know. It's very, very weird. But then as Ross... Oh, and also I should point out as well that while the blood is coming out of Patrick Stewart and the now dead Foreign Minister, the helicopter pilot freaks out. Yes! And then it cuts to a shot of a helicopter, which is so clearly a model.
That's amazing.
It was... you're like, come on, guys, you didn't even try there. It looks really weird. And then he's like,
bit's amazing.
And then, oh dear! So after the space vampire realised in blood makes her exit from the helicopter, going off who knows where and into who and how.
Yeah.
You know, she can now just apparently just drop and go wherever she wants. As Ross says, we're then just told we're getting a phone call from London. London's descended into chaos.
Yeah,
And again, it's like,
the BBC said this is the biggest calamity since the Blitz.
Since the Blitz.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to zombies eating people's faces.
Yes!
Yeah.
And I think...
And Tuctonia blowing up.
Yeah.
why
that looks
is
a bit
this
worse.
happening?
It looks a bit worse than the Blitz, to be honest. I know the Blitz was bad.
Yeah, but they weren't
But I
eating
don't-
each other.
I don't remember cannibal zombies sucking the life out of people in the Blitz.
And the crazy thing, I put some of the people that I put, they've read that there's a punk,
Yeah.
there's a nun, weirdly enough.
The nun was amazing.
And also one who looks a bit like Dot Cotton from EastEnders.
Yeah.
Time for our monthly EastEnders reference.
Someone in
Like, she
a full black and white Adidas tracksuit. as well.
So again, a
Amazing.
really odd mixture of people. But then why has suddenly been a zombie outbreak? It's not established at all.
It's not explained, though.
No. It's
So they go see the
explanation.
Prime Minister.
Wait, yes,
Yeah.
they say, first of all, right, so we've been told that we must land here, and you're going to be taken down into what does actually look like the Cabinet War Rooms, doesn't it?
Yes.
They're down in the Cabinet War Rooms, right? And they're like, okay, here's what's been happening. And they go, and the Prime Minister looks flustered. He does look
Sweating.
like a Tory MP who's just been caught out in a sex scandal, doesn't he? He's like, I'll talk to you in a minute. And,
Was this
something
is
over
it
there.
Secretary Miss Havisham? Which is
Miss
I thought he
Havisham.
was saying Miss Havisham as well.
Yeah.
Here's Miss Havisham. And then he's like, I'll talk to you in a minute. And he gets his secretary, Miss Havisham, as the guys say. He's like, oh, come through here, Miss Havisham. Oh, Miss Havisham. Again, it's very sex comedy. And then we then learn that what's happened is he has been, as in the novel, he has been kind of taken over by one of the energy, or bitten by one of the energy vampires at some point, I'm
And
guessing.
he sucks her face off.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
run away again, and then they have zombies climbing over the
Chasing
helicopter.
them.
as they're
Yeah, all
trying
of
to
a
get
sudden,
off.
zombies start
I love
chasing them
all
from
that.
somewhere.
And the hands sliding off, skin sliding off their hands. They get like the flare gun and fire it into it. Yeah, so
That's
again,
great.
sped up. From this point on, it's brilliant. It's just
Right.
Yeah.
It just,
Well, the hilarity is they then go, we've got to go and land in Blackheath or we'll get shot down. So cool, again, close to, as with Deptford, the last time we were doing Quatermass, Blackheath up the road from where I used to live. I was like, hey, I know that bit of the world. Anyway, so they land. It's not Blackheath. It doesn't look anything like Blackheath. And we're basically told the commander, the armed forces commander there, basically says, we have been given clearance to drop a nuclear bomb on London.
Yes.
We've managed to
In a matter of
contain
hours.
all of London.
Yeah, from
is-
NATO.
NATO, and I put NATO exclamation mark. NATO have got involved and said, right, you're going to have to blow up London. This has all got out of hand. And then
very,
someone else-
very,
though.
very quickly.
I agree.
and then,
though.
and then someone else goes, oh, the space. What about the other huge peril? And the army commander goes, what other huge peril? He goes, the alien spaceship that's turning up any second now. He goes, oh yes, that one. It's like, as if, what a day this has been. Jesus, the overtime forms. Right. So what they then say is, now hang on, Ross, you may have to get the points of this right. All I know is that our SAS commander decides. Kane decides that he's going to charge into central London.
Yeah, well, they see a
'Cause
big
he's gonna
light
go-
coming up from St Paul's going into space.
It's not
Well,
St
it's-
Paul's. It is
It's not
absolutely
St.
not
Paul's.
St Paul's Cathedral.
It's
not
a very
even
bad
close.
model that doesn't look much like St. Paul. It's called the Cathedral. And it's got a very dodgy dome.
Yes.
So then, this bit reminded me of when the Harris from the Rats, I don't know why I remembered his name, had to drive into London and go through all of the to get into the centre of London for some reason.
Yes.
So that he commandeers a car and just
The
drives.
commander's got, and John is that a Ford Granada estate? It looked like a Granada estate.
It's either
green.
a Granada or a Cortina. I can't remember.
Because my notes are underside a bit of Granada estate. That's how,
And he doesn't
Kind
even
of
shut the
angry-
window when he's driving past zombies. And it's like, mate, lock the doors, shut the window. You've got hands reaching
don't
in,
need
just
that.
shut the window.
Yeah, so
He's
basically
in the
says
SAS
if I
and
can
he's in a
stop this from
rain Mac.
happening within 2 hours, we will stop the nuclear bomb going
Yes.
off. And that's
Yes.
right.
Yeah, so he drives off, but then the astronaut goes after him because he's been called by the alien to go.
The alien, So using some kind of sexy sat nav, sexy internal sat nav, because he doesn't know he don't know his way around London, but he's kind of drawn towards the cathedral in inverted commas, which is not, and I'm going to stress this again, not St Paul's Cathedral, because why? As we see quite clearly by the tube stop where all this is happening, it's Chancery Lane. It's not St Paul's. It clearly says Chancery Lane Tube Station. But anyway, anywho, I noticed that in the background at one point there's a prefab Sprout poster. Did you see that? I was like, prefab Sprout. Okay, interesting. And we then get basically two sequences which feature our SAS Commander Kane sort of fighting zombies. It's kind of the classic zombie, being chased by hordes. He's arms coming through windows,
arms being ripped off,
all that jazz.
But running past Triumph Dolomites, Austin Maxis, all minis, just things. Obviously, 10-year-old cars that are probably already so rusty now that they can't be MOT'd and they're ready to be scrapped. And then he runs into Frank Finlay in DD Denham's headquarters, doesn't he? And you're like, why has he gone there? Because
yeah, he was heading towards St Paul's, wasn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
And we find that Frank Finley's gone mad, hasn't he, in some way, shape, or been turned into a vampire.
Yeah, but you don't know how he's...
How?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not explained, because he's killed the other vampire.
And some vampires, if you shoot them, they explode. But some vampires, if you shoot them, loads of light fires out of them, and it goes up into the beam of light, which is going into space. So
and some vampires, when they're turning into vampires, big bubbles come out of their head.
And some vampires, when you kill them, they turn into the big bat monster.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah. No consistency amongst the vampire community, is there?
No.
So meanwhile as well, Coulson has now made his way into the cathedral, or the church, wherever it may be. Yeah. He's found his space vampire love, and she's like, yes, you need to be with me. And that's when she gives as we said right back at the start of this podcast, several years ago, when we said the whole thing of we made ourselves look exactly like, we made you fall in love with us, but I am in love with you, which I thought was a bit weird, especially when you see what the vampires actually look like, their true form. Like, I'm not sure if that would really work.
You've been one of us all along. So which is it?
And again, I think that's probably a callback to Colin Wilson's original novel, that everyone's got energy transference powers, etc., etc. But once again, that's kind of brushed over in a moment. They then start having sex again.
Standing up sex.
Energy kind of is flowing out of them, heading up into the alien spaceship.
Which is the same effect they used on Ghostbusters and all of the films in the 80s, isn't it?
Indeed it is, yes.
It's a very good effect. I
wonder what it is, though.
Yeah.
It's probably like pouring like conditioner into some water and swirling it around or something, isn't it?
It's what Lieutenant Ilea becomes at one point, I think, doesn't she, on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise?
Yes.
Which obviously, if it's John Dykstra, it's the same effect, I would have thought.
Yeah, maybe even the same bit of film which he superimposed over
somewhere else. So meanwhile, and then the last laugh out loud moment for me in the film is that Kane makes it to the cathedral, sees that there's energy flying out the top, and thinks, "Oh, this must be the place." But then also energy is flying up into one of the other vampires. Dun, 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 dun. And he is just sort of kind of taking the energy in, and he just looks at him and says in a really odd kind of voiceover voice, "It'll be much less terrifying if you just come to me."
Yeah.
Oh, what? And then he shoots him.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, he stabs him.
Stabs him with the weird like spire bit of metal, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then he turns into a big bat.
He then turns into a big bat and explodes. Of course, he runs in. Kane runs in to the cathedral and looks down into the crypt where they're having their stand-up sex, and he shouts, "He goes, Carlson!" at him. And Carlson, to start off with, quite understandably, is far more interested in what's directly in front of him. But he kind of sort of regains enough of his humanity for a moment, and then kind of sort of puts his hand up. Doesn't need to say, right, kind of drop me the sword.
Yeah.
He drops him the sword. He drives the sword through the back of the lady space vampire, and through him,
yes,
you'd think killing them both but maybe not.
No, because they explode, don't they?
Yeah,
they explode.
Right. But it shows them then flying up into the spaceship.
Oh yes,
They go into a different
and then the umbrella spaceship. Yeah, and then the umbrella spaceship just flies off into space. Then doesn't it?
And then you have the SAS man looking into the space,
and
then it just zooms off, and that's the end. And then you hope he manages to call the soldiers in time to stop the nuclear bomb
on London. And also, he hopefully gets that Mac to have a dry clean, because once again, he has worn that non-stop. Even at the end, I noticed that he tied it back up. I thought, surely you want to keep cool.
But he does change his polar net a couple of times.
He does.
Colour, yeah,
Mac is ubiquitous.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Yes.
Okay, what do we think?
Well,
insane.
I think that this is a natural ebb and flow of this podcast, and I think this is the end of something and the beginning of something new. Episode 39. I think we've ended the first sequence of General Witchfinders on a high with this. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Ooh, wow!
And I think we can go on into new pastures from this, because in lots of ways this film really merges everything that we've watched in the past 40 episodes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's mental that it does that in a 1 hour 40-minute film. For me, it's one of the best things we've watched and one of the worst. But it's a lot of fun, and but it does take itself seriously, and then it doesn't take itself seriously. It's just a really, really strange film.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
If you
3 films in one.
If you don't try and think of it to make sense, and if you just watch it for like you said, all the money's on the screen, because it's got some amazing model effects. It's got some great stunts. I was just watching it there and seeing like a double-decker bus exploding and
all that stuff is brilliant.
With and on the side of the bus, it was Glasgow's Smiles Better, which was Glasgow's campaign in the 1980s to try and sort of regenerate and rejuvenate Glasgow.
Oh my God!
Which used the Mr. Men in its advertising. I remember that. You can see it on the side of the bus.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, James. What are you going to give it?
I am going to give it. I despite John's passionate plea, it's going to be a 2 out of 5 for me because sorry, John, sorry, but what I would say is that just to give you some sort of context, that this was my cultural weekend. I watched Killers of the Flower Moon, the Scorsese thing. Then I got up and I listened to an amazing BBC podcast all about Philip K. Dick's Ubik.
Yeah.
No, not Ubik, Valis. With the brilliant Matthew Sweet, who's, I know, a big movie and what have you. So 2 really amazing bits of high culture. And then I watched this film. So it was a bit like doing a really sharp handbrake turn in a car. It's like, oh my God, what the, whoa. And so you do have to say, it's said, in terms of kind of plot holy, it's massively inconsistent. Like I said, such bizarre script writing choices at points. But I said, I'm not saying it's a 0. Christ, don't watch it, because as you said, there is fun to be had in watching it. So all right, I'm going to put it up to 2.5.
Well done.
It's hugely enjoyable in speech marks.
I originally put 1 out of 5, but talking to you about it and watching it again today, I'm going to put it to a 3 because it was fun.
I can't believe that you didn't give it 3 for boobs, Ross.
But apparently, most of the 18 minutes that was cut out were sex scenes.
Really?
Yeah.
I would say that in terms of enjoyment level for me, it's up there with the best things we've covered.
Okay.
Wow.
Even with The Road, even with Stone Tape.
Yeah.
What else have we done recently that I've
Whistle and I'll Come to You.
All the Quatermasses.
I think it's up there because it's just so mental.
Yeah.
And each scene is like they're trying to make a scene as dissimilar to the last scene that they just made.
Yeah.
So what have we just done, guys? Oh, we did the dialogue about the... Yeah, okay, forget all that. Now we... It's brilliant. It's a brilliant film. Yeah, there we are.
It's like they're doing... It's like Bake Off. It's like a themed week. And this week, we're doing zombies.
Yeah. Bring in zombies.
Yeah, and it's a film they could only have made in the 80s. They would never make a film like this again.
No.
So on next time, it's every 10 episodes. We tend to throw it over to the audience. We haven't done any Big Chris Lee for a long time.
Oh,
And there are 5 Hammer Horror Dracula films we haven't done yet. I don't want to do the first one because I think it's such a well-trod story. I think
we've done it already, haven't we?
No, we've never done the original Dracula.
Oh, good Lord. I thought we'd done that.
No, so
Frankenstein.
I'm going to put it up onto our Twitter or on our X, which is twitter.com/GeneralWitch1, the numeral 1. So if you're not follow us on Twitter and you've left it, well, I don't know what we're going to do about that. But, you know...
We'll sort of blue sky out.
Yeah. We're sorting out. But anyway, that's where we're going to put it in the poll. So we want you to vote between The Brides of Dracula, Dracula's Prince of Darkness, Dracula's Risen from the Grave, and Taste the Blood of Dracula. John is now going to do a passioned plea to get you to vote the way he wants it to go.
Well, Brides of Dracula is beautifully shot, doesn't even feature Dracula, and is a really very well-made film. Taste the Blood of Dracula is the best of the rest. Dracula Prince of Darkness is very slow, and Dracula doesn't even have any dialogue in it.
Another payday for Chris Lee.
It says a lot about the quality of the film. Hiya, Pud. The cat's just come in. And then, what was the other one? Dracula is Risen from the Grave. Is a very poor 60s psychedelic Dracula film with lots of weird filters. It's really dull.
Okay.
Yeah.
So make of that what you will. Try not to torture us and give us something good to watch. But there we go.
All of them are better than Extra, please, to be honest.
Until next time, great to see you all and happy day.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Love, light, and peace.
You have been listening to The General Witchfinders. Support the show and continue the conversation at patreon.com/General Witchfinders. Subscribe and spread the word at generalwitchfinders.com. Farewell, and don't have nightmares.
JKW. Who was? Hero. 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 JKW.